Hi there. Welcome to another presentation of the Globe Sound Healing Conference. Now we have Rebecca Abraxas. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi there, David. So good to see you again.
Welcome, welcome. Rebecca has been sharing her voice and her awareness about the power of voice for the past 25 years. As a Globe certified advanced sound therapist, Holy Fire Reiki Master, certified yogi, and priestess of the ceremonial arts, Rebecca mentors women on vibrational wellness and offers therapeutic sound baths. She is in training to be an ordained metaphysical minister to take her mentoring and public events to the next level. Her specialty is supporting midlife perimenopausal women to step into being spiritual warriors through the power of voice and vibrational adjustments. She guides them to have peace, ease, and awareness as they go through menopause into the queen phase of their lives with power, purpose, and potency, breaking free from the collective paradigm of aging.
Wow, did I
Cool.
write that? I don't even. That's a lot.
I love it. I love it. I mean, it's so potent. It's what you just said there. I want to dive in right away, but I'm going to ask the big questions first. And that is, if you had all the money in the world, what would you do to help people?
What would I do to help people? I would be supporting a lot of people, I guess, in sound and wellness. I would be creating centers. For a long time, I wanted to create share centers where we combine the elderly people with teenagers, and they're sharing together and they're helping each other from both ends of their lives. And I would get the share center going on. Like they're like community centers for seniors and teens, had to have purpose and potency in their lives, because they're two areas of our communities that kind of get lost in the shuffle, and we're not using their wisdoms to amplify, you know, amplify our greatness in the world. So the share centers would be all over the globe and creating physical and online programs for teens and seniors to
I,
connect.
I love that. I love it. You know, from your bio here, it's really interesting because the first thing I think of when I read that is so many people think of aging as a bummer.
Yeah.
It's a total bummer. And it's not.
No.
It's like number one is wisdom. I mean, holy moly, I'm so glad I know more than I did when I was 21.
I'd never want to go back.
Right. In fact, we need about another 200 years to now like move it forward.
Yeah, yeah, right. I'm hoping to be a centurion because I got a lot to share in the next 50 years. So
Well, it's really okay. So, what makes us healthy?
vibrational alignment. Vibrational alignment with our source self, our higher guidance. When that is all connected in, which is always connected, but it's our perspectives and our emotional triggers and traumas and belief systems that in a sense disconnect us. So when we start to align more and more, and we become a dominant resonance with our source self, that's what creates health. And the cool part about midlife is that we have lived a lot of years to get this, what Abraham Hicks calls contrast. We have the contrast of what we want and what we don't want, and it's very apparent at midlife. And so getting healthy means decreasing this gap between what we really want, what we don't want, and what we really want. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and how we do that with the voice.
So, how much is it clearing and how much is it resonating with higher powers?
I think like you can do it both ways, right? I personally think it's really healthy to do it both ways simultaneously, because we never want to bypass. There's always going to be some dense energy in our subconscious, right? With thoughts, feelings, emotions, triggers, trauma. There's a book called No Bad Parts. It's about the internal family systems. And they talk about all these parts of ourselves that didn't trust our source nature. So they started to create like these kind of alter egos to protect us, and those parts of ourselves need to be integrated. They need to be talked to. The sound can soothe them. They need to find a different path, if you will. And so this kind of work really helps to the detoxing really helps that part, and then attuning to source helps us even more. So we're creating this open flute and this fluidity. Vicky Dodd talks about it, right? Like the becoming fluid again. So
I love it. You know, it's interesting because most of us kind of know what we want to be,
right, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And it's actually really stressful sometimes because you go, I know I should be this loving, this, connected to source, and I kind of suck at it sometimes.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Right?
totally.
And you're like, what the hell? And I mean, so it's not like, I mean, some of us don't even know where we're going. I mean,
Yeah,
that's a whole nother level,
yeah,
right? It's like, but a lot of us have gotten to the point, especially when you approach midlife, right?
yeah,
Where kind of idea of an ideal person that you would like to be. And
yeah.
so it's even besides closing that gap, there's a huge part of not feeling bad about not being the ideal person that you want to
Well,
be.
that's what's in the gap, right? Because that's what feels like what it feels like when we're stuck, when we're like when we know who we want to be, but we haven't gone there yet, and there's this sense of stuckness. And this is where your voice can really start to smooth that out. It just that sense of stuckness, because you just named it beautifully. It's just we know what we want to be. We know what's a good person is, and we know we want to be that, but we're held back and we don't know how exactly to get that. And those feelings of guilt and shame for not being that, that's what
Right?
keeps us stuck there too. That it's all a process, and it's all the journey, and it's all okay. And it's okay if we're not perfect 5 days out of the week, but maybe we have some really great conscious days 2 days out of the week. Well, that's a great start.
Right, right. Excellent. Well, okay. So here I am, human, and I got a very good vision. I've really thought about it, and I know what I want to be, and I'm not that all the time. I'm part of it, and I can run gratitude when I'm there, right? Now, where do I go? What do I do now to
Well,
really close the gap more?
yeah. So I want to talk about the voice, because that's what this is about. So I want to name like 4 or 5 things that the voice helps you do to uncover just that. And the first thing I've noticed throughout my whole life since I started singing 30 years ago is that vocal awareness. So your voice can be a wonderful barometer to start noticing the tone and the pitch and the quality throughout your day. So if you're around family or colleagues, or you're at a network meeting, or you have to do a talk in front of 100 people, notice how your voice changes. Does it change? Ideally it's like we want to just be our authentic self and just talk like our authentic self, right? But when you notice that this gap's there, and you notice that there's, oh my gosh, my voice gets higher, and when I'm in like this people pleasing mode, oh, my voice gets kind of monotone and low when I feel like not worthy. Or oh, I have this like grumbly thing going on when I eat this and that. So there's been so many times my voice has shown me what to eat properly for my body, or what emotion is up for me right now. So many times I've gone to perform and had like a tiff with my partner, and then I go and I'm like, I can't access my voice, because when you're angry, your jaw is tight, your soft palate is flattened, and you can't access your range. The anger has gripped you. So the vocal awareness is this barometer we all have if we start paying attention to the sound quality, pitch, and tone of our voice. So that's one
Essentially,
thing.
of course, the number one thing is that you can really tell when there's a little bit of fear in there,
Yeah.
just
A little
versus
wobble.
fear or confidence. I mean, just that is the
Yeah.
most basic. I mean, because it's like, I don't know what I think, right? Or it's
Yeah.
like, let's go for
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
So becoming really aware of that, and when you fine tune this and really start to listen in, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much there. There's so much there to be cleared up, right? There's so much there to start detoxing and looking at and processing. The other thing is where are we at? Your vocal empowerment, your ability to go forth with your voice or not go forth, and that ties into the fear aspect you just talked about. But it gives us a lot of information. So if someone said, if you walk down the street and just ask someone randomly, hey, can you sing me a song? Have you ever done that to someone? People are like, like they're like a deer in the headlights, and then they're like, you don't want to hear my voice. They go into all of this like strange, like interesting, I guess, commentary about their voice. That's really great information. And that leads us to the root of where we've been silenced, where we've been told we're not enough, where we've had to do bells and whistles and live a certain way to really survive in our tribe as a young person, a pre-verbal person. So vocal empowerment, super a super cool component about whether you want to use your voice or don't want to use your voice. It tells you a lot about what's in that gap.
It's like pop culture has kind of messed everything up. Great singers, right? It's like,
Right.
it's like I was just talking to Liz Addison. She was, you go into town in Africa and everybody comes out singing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like there's not as much fear. She said there still is good and bad singers, but still there's not as much fear about it. And it's I always say if you know of someone who said to you, you can't sing, go find them and kick them in the knee.
I know, right? I have worked with so many people that have said that, and I'm like, who says that to a little kid? I can't even like you find a way to integrate them, my God, into the choir. Um, but yeah, and I think this is a real thing in our culture that we only see voice as a way to communicate with words or a way to perform and sing a pretty song. But it's also such a powerful integrator and processor of emotions, right? It regulates our nervous system. It's such a powerful superhero, right? It connects us with spirit. When we sound out, and then the silence afterwards, you can start to hear the quality of your authentic source self in that silence after you vocalize. Because the vocalizing is just moving the energy so that the clouds disperse and the blue sky of source is there. It's always been there, right? So I think we need to be teaching kids that your voice is not just to hear a pretty song. It's so much more, right?
Yeah, yeah. And less of this, shh,
Yeah, yeah.
right? I thought it should be required to have a sound room at your home. Okay, you want to make sound, you want to get noisy, go in there and go
Mm-hmm.
for it,
Yeah.
right? Or it's like God, just last year I was on a hike and I was with came across a family with a little kid. He must have been 5 years old and he was crying. And the dad went, stop it,
Mm.
stop it, stop making that sound.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he had just started crying. I'm
Yeah.
like, I just wanted to jump in and say, let him cry a little bit first,
Yeah. Cry
right?
and ask what's going on. Like,
Right,
yeah.
right,
Yeah. And so
right.
this is the type of work that we can start doing for our younger parts of ourselves that were silenced, right? And this is where the voice comes in. Like you can take a safe seat when you're feeling these things come up and you just talk to your young self. Hey, cry out. Maybe your voice wants to cry and you actually sit there and you vocalize crying and then you ask it like, what's going on? You know, and you ask what sound could you make that would make things better? And you let out that sound. So there's so many different ways you can work with the voice with this inner child work. And
Tell me more. Tell me more ways.
in more ways. Okay, so one of the ways is like you tune into the emotion that's maybe sitting heavy on your chest, right? And you surrender the voice to that sensation. And sometimes when you surrender the voice, it might sound like a groan, and you just groan. You just allow it to not sound pretty. You really give your voice to the voice of that emotion. Really groaning. And as you start to move the emotion and move the energy, the tone shifts. It does become more pure. It does start to just have like and that's when you know that some movement has happened, and you'll feel lighter. And that tension can actually lift physically too. So another way too is, say you got a kink in your neck. That is something from like some subconscious stress that you have, and it's worked its way into the physical tissue. You can go into that sensation of just the tension, and you can start giving it a voice. And maybe this time you're going to go with ah, right, or e. E's, you've taught us, is a real, it's an odd harmonic, and it goes into that area, and E just starts breaking something up, like thinking of like working a knot, right? And E starts E, and it starts pulling at the knot, and all of a sudden it gets loose. And all of a sudden it becomes just that fluid strand, right? You can do that with the voice. And then all of a sudden, when you're quiet in the awareness of the silence, you may get some information about where that tension originated and what's the root there. And so that's given me so much information through these past 30 years of like using voice, being silent, the awareness comes of where the root is, or what the next breadcrumb is to unravel the knot, whether it's physical tension or emotional tension.
I love it. I got a couple others that are really fun. One is just make weird sounds. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, 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 right? Or also the other one is a power sound.
Ah,
Hi-ya, right?
nice. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. Power sound. Actually, so I don't know whether to talk about this now or not, but like you're becoming the dominant frequency in your life at midlife. And so how many times before midlife have we like just gone into everyone else's frequency, right? So it's important in midlife to really like own your authentic self and be that, and walk into a room, and instead of entraining to them, they entrain to you, right? So what dominant resonance is that, just for people that might not know, it's like it's whatever's in the room that's the strongest and most consistent. Now we learned that from you,
Mhm.
David. And other things will the weaker frequencies will entrain to that, or the less consistent. So one of the ways that I do this in my life is, doing a 20-30 minute meditation and really getting into that source self. And then afterwards, marking it with a sound. And it can be any sound. Just let anything out. Ooh. But feel it, sing it enough times so that you feel your source authenticity melting into your field and just becoming your cells. And so then every hour on the hour, right? You can just set your alarm to make that note. You don't have to go into a 30-minute meditation. You just mark it with that note, and get that same somatic sensation. And you just tune yourself every hour. And eventually, if you do it every hour consistently, eventually you don't have to, you just do it
All
a
right.
few, maybe 3 times a day. Yeah, you start becoming that more and more. And you start noticing that you are becoming the dominant frequency of your authentic self. And that's where a lot of vibrant health is.
I think that's one of the coolest techniques ever. I mean, that's so cool to really do it throughout the day. I
Yeah,
think that's so important.
yeah.
Wow.
So simple,
Wow.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
simple. Yeah. You just
I,
have to make sure you cultivate that in the morning sometime, right? Like you really do the work to meditate and feel that sense of source
yeah.
self. You have to visit that, right? And then
What really helped me was the teaching from Lisa Raffel. I mean, years ago, it kind of changed my life, where she said, you need to notice your own vibration,
mhm.
notice the other people's vibrations, and notice the space between,
Interesting.
right? So
Yeah.
that you, and that changed my life because I remember I used to hate going to parties or where I'm with a bunch of people because my energy was pulled every which way,
Yeah.
right? I wasn't aware of my own vibration. And finally, I got where I could be in my own vibration. If someone's uh, really outward too much or not too much, but really, really vibrant, I can pull my energy back and not, not, not be in that space. And I learned how to actually expand my energy or pull it in.
Yeah.
And that just changed my life.
That is amazing work that we should be teaching kids in kindergarten. Like it's such powerful work. And when you talk about knowing what your energy is, it's super powerful. Like there was a teaching I had about something called like a tool called return to sender, that a 98% of the stuff that we're thinking and feeling actually isn't like quote our in our personal field. And so you can return it to sender with consciousness. And when you really clear your field enough times, if you use that tool, return to sender, say all day for 5 days in a row, you would notice how much clearer you are. And you could come back and feel like, oh, this is me. Oh, all this energy around like, what's happening in the neighborhood and what's happening at school and everything isn't mine, right? So it's interesting, but if it is coming your way, it is giving you some feedback that maybe there's something in your subconscious that's attracting these energies. So there's that too. So you can look at this so many different ways, and you can always use the voice to process, clear, integrate, and elevate your vibration. And when you do
It's
that, you're helping your health in every level.
It's so interesting. I've been asking people for years, and when I'm in groups, how many of you know where home is? Not even talking about the note, just where you're at peace, where you're you.
Yeah.
And it's generally less than a third, often less than a quarter, will raise their hand.
Yeah.
And it's so important because once you know where you're you, then you know when it's off
Mm-hmm.
and you know you need to do something to really clear that extraneous energy that you're talking about or uh or just resonate you. Now there's your voice frequency that feels the most comfortable that you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also your metabolism frequency, which is interesting. Just knowing your rhythm. It's
Mm.
what rhythm feels right for you, right? Which is your heart rate and brainwave rate when you're at peace.
Yeah.
And that's, oh my God, it's so cool. It's because to know, I mean, probably if we were to do the most important thing we could do for the world with all the money in the world is show everybody how to be at peace no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's true health, right? I mean, when we hit midlife and we're saying like, oh my gosh, like the midlife crisis, we're having this panic that we didn't do enough, or we weren't successful enough. Oh, we don't have money for retirement. All this fear and stuff like that. Um, we just can calm down and come into peace and trust the present moment and live from here rather than live from all these baggages from the past, right? What a gift. What a gift to live from inner peace, right? And just the present moment. And
Uh,
that's where we need to come into in midlife, really come into that. And just speaking about like the you, right? In midlife, we start to realize that what that really is, it's not like our personality. It's not what our ego is saying is important. And hopefully, we start coming to that realization that it's our spiritual beingness that is the true you. And so that's something to unravel too in that gap at midlife, is to really come to terms with we're this infinite being. We're not this personality that says this has to happen and this has to happen, this has to show up. Although when we do live in the bliss of inner peace, a lot does show up that we'd like to have. But if it comes from an egoic perspective, then it just brings a lot of like anxiety and attention.
Right. You know, it was about 5 years ago that my life changed when I really took on the motto, it's all taken care of.
Mm,
Right?
beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
all taken care of. And I think of that all the time now when I think about whether it's business, relationships, who I am, whatever, it's all taken care of. It's like I've got helpers on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And
Yeah.
and like you said, when you relax into it, then it opens up on its own.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
second you stop stressing.
Yep. And so, which brings me to this sensation of being sung can really teach us about just living in that space. It's all taken care of. And so when we do the detox work with the voice, so when we learn about the superpower of our voice, we start to create this open flute sensation, right? Where we can just be sung. So what happens is like I call it spontaneous source singing, or it's what light language is when we get out of the way, we raise our frequency, that source just sources us, and any sound comes out, right? We can just flow with our voice, but that sensation gives you an indicator of how to live that way too, right? So many times I've when I was first started performing as a singer songwriter, I'd be scared getting up on stage, and I'd kind of just I was in the priestess program, and they were teaching us, put this aside and just let God run the show. And I can't even tell you how many times that happened where I was just like, freaking out, and then did that, and it was just all of a sudden the flow of my voice came through, and that showed me through my 20s and 30s how to live like that off stage too. So when we do this with our voice, it teaches us how to live like being sourced, and like it's all taken care of. So the voice just has this way of teaching you that teaching.
You give us a little demo.
Sure. Of just spontaneous singing?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sure.
Okay. Just short
Sure. Do you want me to do my drum?
or whatever.
Yeah. Let me know if it
Oh
starts
my God,
playing.
that's a big drum.
Yeah, it's a 22. It just gives it some nice reverb. So it's like there's just this knowingness, and then you just trust it, and you open your voice, and you just sound out, and you don't know where it's going to go, and it's such a metaphor for life, right? You just open yourself up to life, and it's just you're just going to be guided, and all's going to be okay.
So there's free form where it just comes.
Mm-hmm.
There's energies, which are archangels, ascended masters, positive aliens, maybe ancestors that come. And then there's source
Yeah.
that comes. And I would
The source
say,
that is,
mm-hmm,
because it doesn't really come, because it just is. It's what you are. Is.
nice, nice. So I would say that if I were to if I were to ask people well, actually, I've asked people how many people have been one with the universe, with source, And then I asked how many people can access it at will, and we're down to probably 10%.
Mhm.
So what might we do to open those channels more?
Well, it's what we talked about earlier. It's really doing the shadow work to decrease the gap. And in that shadow work, you detoxify the density, and when the density's gone, it's really like the metaphor of the clouds. Like when the clouds and the density starts leaving, there's the blue sky. You always see it when you go on a plane. I'm always amazed. You go through the clouds, the blue sky's been there all along. It just is there all the time. So you just do the shadow work, get those shadow clouds out of the way, and there you are. There it is. And so the more you do that, the more you feel more fluid, less fear, the more you feel like trying new things, the more you're willing to have a voice. And another really cool technique is that if someone asks you to sing and you notice, wow, I have a lot, like everything just contracted in my body. And when you start, if someone said, here's some vocal technique, I'm going to show you how your voice works. But all of a sudden you're starting to realize, oh wow, my jaw is like really tight, or oh wow, I can't do what you're saying, make my soft palate a jellyfish. I can't do that. And I'm like, okay. So what is that? So we go in and ask some questions around that. So just learning about your voice, not to sing pretty, but just learning to have more possibilities with toning, you start to unravel some of those old belief systems that are really locked up in the subconscious. So I really feel like your question is really, the answer to the question is really going into that subconscious reprogramming and, lessening this gap and really starting to live more fluidly from our source selves. But we have to do the shadow work while we're doing the light work, because it kind of can be done simultaneously, and it has to be, because a lot of times in like talk therapy, we talk it out and we start re-traumatizing that subconscious again. With voice work, we can go underneath the words. We go underneath the emotional description of it all, and we go to the vibrational root, and we don't seem to re-traumatize ourselves or activate that frequency as much, and we just start soothing it out and integrating it. So I think it's a myth that trauma and triggers take such a long time in therapy to heal. I think with sound healing, we can just get under that, the vibrational root, and it moves quick. I've experienced this myself coming out of talk therapy, and for years I'm just being like, oh my God, like my it's just so much. And like my relationships were getting worse, not better in therapy. And then I was just like, I'm going to give this a rest. Then I started your program last year, came out of therapy, started your program. And it was just like, we're just going to do this more often. And the sound moves things so quickly. So keep toning. Vocal tone your vowels, vocal tone the chakras, vocal tone your emotions, right? And if you're not there yet to do that spontaneous singing, just do it on E and ah. It can be really simple.
With the main thing is you can't do it wrong.
You can't do it wrong. No.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my God. There's so many people that are just scared
Yeah.
to sing or make sound out loud because they're afraid they'll be out of pitch.
Right. I know. It's such a disservice. Um, and the other problem with that is that, like, when we're trying to just be on pitch and just be in like the Western scale and stuff, we miss out on so many cool sounds, like you're saying, like the really low, high, the animal sounds, all the different tones, and that's full expression, right? But when we're only allowing ourselves just the 12 pitches in the Western scale and we can't hit them, then we think we can't sing. And then we close down our whole vocal apparatus because we can't sing a pretty note. And that's such a disservice. And yeah, it's sad because there's,
It's it's so interesting because I've gone through it. I mean, I think I suck as a singer.
mm-hmm.
And I've learned that if I'm in the zone energetically, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I've noticed this with students as well. When we do our final projects, it's like I've had students that are really bad singers
Mhm.
that I'm just in tears,
Yeah, because it's the energy coming through
right?
it. It's the
The
energy coming
energy is the
through
whole
it.
deal.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we got to practice becoming that energy. And what I do in my live sound baths, I do every Friday, every once a month on a Friday. Um, I do this sound bath to help just elevate, clear the chakras, elevate the vibration, and just really expand people. But then what we do, I start guiding them to use their voice. So once they're expanded, then they're like, oh, okay, we'll do a rolling om and we'll do some chanting, and then we open it up to this collective sound healing where I have everybody either using a percussion instrument or their voice. And we're sometimes people get in the middle, sometimes we're just doing it to the collective. But instead of just getting them high, I'm teaching them like how to embody through their voice and how to use it. And once they've, once you're high, you're like, I can do anything, you know what I mean? So like they start using their voices and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know like I could do this or would do this," right? So I love this format that I do because it's like not just a sound bath and getting people high, it's embodying their voice and then showing them that they can be a sound healer too. And that freedom, let's bring it back to midlife. When we can start living that freedom, we start living the second half of our life without regrets, right? And without resentment. And that's what it's going to keep us like youthful, right? That's what's going to keep us healthy. And I've worked with seniors for 25 years. I've gone to healthcare centers and done music for 25 years. I've seen some really crabby people that could have really used this work. And then I've seen people that have done the shadow work that just seem, even in their 90s, they're like, going to exercise class and come into my music classes and they're happy as can be. And I was like, okay, that's what I want to be. I want to be happy and peaceful through all the ages.
We work with a dementia company. I've been doing sound baths and voice work every week now for the last year. And just last week, we had some that were a more low functioning group, like half a dozen. And I said, okay, we did some call and response first, and most of them were doing it, right. And then I said, okay, let's do the sound of how we're feeling. And this one guy who was like this, he goes, oh, and he totally smiles.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, and he looks at me and he smiles.
I love
I'm
that.
like,
I love that so much. Memory care, the memory care population is my favorite to work with, actually. And but that's wonderful because the more advanced memory care clients, they're tough to reach sometimes. That's beautiful work you did. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So yourself, connecting to yourself and connecting to source,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And bringing it through.
Yep.
And
That's
then that becomes your life.
yep.
And if you know you're off, do the work, do the sound. I mean, the easiest, I mean, you can go on a hike in nature, you can do yoga, whatever, but just to express it and shift it.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's beautiful work. And the thing is, it's simple work, and it's like we could go into the science of it. We could go into like all the bullet points, but personally, I like keeping it simple these days. And it's fun. I have a program that I'm offering after this for everyone on the conference, and it's for perimenopause renewal. And what we'll do in that, it's not so much more information, but it's guiding people to what they know through their own voice and helping them process their emotions through the program. It's a 3-hour program on the New Earth, and we don't need more information. It's simplified so that we can go in and remember and tune into our own knowing. So sometimes we get so distracted out here with so much information. And I feel like the information that we really need is in, well, it's here in our own knowing. And yeah, that's what I guide people to.
Okay. So say we're getting older, getting things, can't walk, knees are hurting, got pain. Uh, there's, and we just can't do the things that we used to.
Yeah.
And it's really like depressing.
Yeah.
So what may you recommend?
Well, we can always, sorry about we can
We
always,
can just sing along with it.
yeah.
Whee!
I really know that well from my personal body. And I just visited my 74-year-old mom who is going through a lot of that. Interestingly enough, I did do the tuning forks on her back because she has bad scoliosis. And the next day she was like, "What did you do? I feel amazing." Like she was able to like walk and everything. So there's little techniques we can do to help that. But how do we deal with the depression around not being able to keep going with what we wanted to? But I feel like to really enjoy every year of our lives, we have to keep detaching. We're not the body. We're in the body, playing with the body, but there's always a bird to listen to. There's always a tree to sit next to and feel. So maybe our vision is going, maybe our hearing is going, maybe we can't do the hiking we want. We can still the giving tree. We can still put our back up against the stump of a tree and sense it. And that's worth being in a body. So it's like it's detaching each year from the things that the glory days, and just letting the experience of the now guide us, right? So it's okay. Like Eckhart Tolle talks about this a lot, the power of now, and just sitting still with nature or with your source self in a body is an experience in itself. And the thing is, as you get older, you get more fine tuned to that if you work on it, and more so than you ever could when you were younger. So, with all that ego and personality, right? And we start letting go of the personality and ego, hopefully, through the second half. And we get to really be. And you're, making a sound. The voice sometimes goes too with age. So we can just hum. I do that with my seniors a lot. Just sit and hum and ask, source to just really fill you up in a body. That's an experience. And that's how I've been working with it, because I used to be a big
Nice.
hiker and stuff. So, and my knees are hurting, and there's just stuff that happens, like you said.
It's like there's nothing better also than a gratitude list,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Right? Which, like, the fact you can hum still, the
yeah,
fact you still can feel, the fact that you're really very wise now,
yeah,
right? There's so many things. And the fact that you're not starving and you've got a house and they've got actually hot and cold running water and you've got, you know, heat in the house.
yeah, yeah. And so we get to. I think if we allow it, life can get a lot simpler as we get older. Just the gratitude, just the stillness.
Presence.
Yeah, the just presence. It gets a lot simpler, and I think if we try to make it more complicated, that's when life gets harder and we get depressed. So we simplify and we detox and we let go, and we become like children again, like Christ said, right? Be like the children.
Okay. How about the sound of now?
The sound of now. Should we let it out?
Yeah. That's the portal to source right there. Well, this has just been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share before we end?
Um, yeah, just be brave, have the courage to use your voice, and women who are going through perimenopause, if you want to take advantage of the special offer that's with Globe right now in New Earth, it's a 3 hour program coming up on May 11th. Um, yeah, 11 to 2, I think. So it's 3 hours. So
Nice. I appreciate your wisdom.
thank you. I appreciate yours.
Until next time, thank you.